condemnation by practically the entire world community of Washington's unilateral restrictive measures against Havana, which grossly violate the fundamental principles and norms of international law and prevent Cuba's full participation in international and regional cooperation, and also encroach on the inalienable right of Cuban citizens to a dignified life. The American blockade of the Island of Freedom is a long-standing sanctions war unleashed by the United States against Cuba to achieve its main goal, the overthrow of the government it dislikes, and is a vivid example of treacherous interference in the internal affairs of an independent state. It is no secret to anyone that these illegal unilateral restrictive measures are designed, among other things, to intimidate other states that would like to develop mutually beneficial cooperation with Cuba. The economy of the island is suffering colossal losses from the American embargo from March 2024 to February 2025. The damage caused to it by the blockade increased by 49% compared to the previous similar period and amounted to more than $7.5 billion US, exceeding the huge damage caused to the country in 2023 by $2.5 billion US. The total losses for the entire history of the embargo have reached more than $170 billion US. If not for the blockade, Cuba's GDP could have grown in 2024-2025 by 9.2%, which is one of the highest growth rates in the Western Hemisphere. All this affects the well-being of Cuban citizens, representing a major barrier to the full realization of human rights in Cuba, primarily in the areas of healthcare, education, energy, and food security. We are confident that the fraternal Cuban people, despite all of Washington's efforts, will continue to courageously and cohesively resist the challenge. In connection with the actions of the U.S. aimed at tightening economic pressure on Havana, we reaffirm our position in favor of the immediate exclusion of Cuba from the odious American list of state sponsors of terrorism. This country has an impeccable reputation as an active participant in international cooperation in countering terrorism. Guided by the fundamental principles of the United Nations Charter, we will continue to advocate, together with the world majority, for the complete and unconditional lifting of the embargo, as well as against the preservation of Cuba on the specified list of states. We will continue to provide support in the struggle of the leadership and the fraternal people of Cuba in the name of protecting state sovereignty and to consistently strengthen the Russian-Cuban strategic partnership in the widest range of areas in accordance with the agreements reached during the talks held in May of this year between the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, and the President of the Republic of Cuba. Yesterday, Pochta Russia, on October the 29th, issued the postal marks depicting the consulate generals in Istanbul, the diplomatic missions in Uruguay, and others. All these buildings which are depicted on these stamps represent the historical value, and they all are together issued with Marcos since 2023. The history of the Russian embassy in Berlin dates back to early 18th century during the Second World War. This building was demolished afterwards. Another building was erected. It was solemnly opened in 1852. The embassy of Russia in Uruguay, located on the Boulevard of Spain, is a classic example of the architecture of its time, and this building is an integral part of the cultural landscape of Montevideo. The Consulate General's office was built in 1845 in Istanbul. This is the palace which became the symbol of the imperial power and the symbol of friendship between the two maritime states. On October the 29th, the Municipal BRICS Forum started its work. It brought together many guests and partner states of the association. The opening ceremony and plenary session were attended by the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sherpa of Russian BRICS, Sergei Rabkov. In recent years, conditions have been developing for an increasingly active development of interaction with foreign countries at the Inter-regional and inter-municipal levels, joint initiatives of our regions contribute to the preservation of historically established and the establishment of new ties and supplement the agenda of interstate relations with relevant content. We consider international cooperation at the local level as a valuable instrument for ensuring the foreign policy interests of our country. That is why the BRICS International Municipal Forum is a key platform for the exchange of experience and best practices in the field of local self-government among the participating countries, where representatives of municipalities can share successful practices and find joint solutions to common problems in the field of sustainable urban development, digitalization of municipal services, and improving the quality of life of citizens. By tradition, the event is held in St. Petersburg, which is one of the leaders in the numbers of external ties. More than 100 agreements on cooperation with municipal entities of foreign states, including with the BRICS member countries. Their number is steadily growing. New agreements are being concluded with states that are friendly or constructively disposed towards Russia, and corresponding roadmaps for their implementation are being developed. On the sidelines of the forum, the second module of the International School of Municipal Leadership will be held, organized with the assistance of the administration of the President of the Russian Federation and MGIMO University, within which topical issues of the development and coordination of interregional and intermunicipal ties, project cooperation, attracting investment, and strengthening contacts with regions of friendly countries will be discussed. The first module was successfully held in September of this year with the active participation of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are confident that within the framework of the next BRICS International Municipal Forum, joint initiatives and projects will be developed. 205 years ago, on October 25, November the 6th New Style, in 1820, Emperor Alexander I approved the statute for the consuls of His Imperial Majesty residing in Europe and America, which for the first time in the history of Russia systematized and detailed the activities of Russian consuls abroad. The need to develop a normative act that replaced the previously existing disparate instructions and directives arose in connection with the active expansion of the Russian consular presence abroad during the turbulent period of the Napoleonic Wars and after their end. The main tasks of the consul, who at the time was subordinate jointly to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Foreign Trade, were to ensure compliance with, I quote, the rights and benefits of the Russian people in general in trade and navigation, unquote, as well as to resolve trade disputes between Russian merchants who were on the territory of the consular district. The consul exercised control over merchant shipping, registered ships sailing under the Russian flag, checked and issued ship documents, resolved disputes, investigated shipwrecks, and sanctioned deals for the sale of Russian ships. He also collected and regularly sent to the center systematized information on the state of trade and economic relations with the host country. The duties of the consul included providing comprehensive assistance to compatriots, primarily from among merchants and seafarers, which included both consulting and legal support as well as direct care for their well-being. For example, he was obliged to facilitate the provision of quality medical services to them. The consul issued passports and certificates of registration of civil status acts to Russian subjects, performed notarial acts, carried out the legalization of documents, established guardianship over children left without parental care, took measures to protect inherited property, and assisted in the return of compatriots to their homeland. The consul services were paid for in accordance with the tariff attached to the statute. For more than 2 centuries, the consular statute has been repeatedly revised and supplemented, while invariably remaining the main source of law for Russian and Soviet consuls. The basic principles and directions of consular activities outlined in the very first statute remain relevant today, having found their reflection in the current federal law of July 5, 2010, entitled Consular Statute of the Russian Federation. One more announcement. From November 4th to November 6th, Doha will host the World Summit for Social Development, Second World Summit for Social Development. It will take place there. The event is timed to coincide with the 30th anniversary of the World Summit for Social Development in Copenhagen, which defined the global tasks in the field of poverty eradication, promotion of full and productive employment, and encouragement of social integration. The current summit is intended to play a key role in assessing progress and addressing gaps in the designated areas, as well as in promoting comprehensive approaches focused on people's interests. The political declaration, the adoption of which is intended to be one of the main outcomes of the meeting, is aimed at achieving these goals. The Russian delegation will be headed by the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection of the Russian Federation, Anton Kotikov. It will also include representatives from the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as the All-Russian Union, Federation of Independent Trade Unions of Russia. The Russian side expects a constructive and interested dialogue with the forum participants on the entire spectrum of social development issues. On November 6th and 7th,